So I need to tell you a little bit about myself. You're probably wondering, who is this woman? I am a former NDP MLA. I am a party member of the New Democratic Party, both provincially and federally. And in 2012, I was the first woman elected to the riding of Chilliwack Hope and the first New Democrat elected in that riding. And I am also a former union president for CEIU and a shop steward. I fall on the left wing of the political spectrum. And when I spoke to Meghan and these women here that are on the panel and decided that I would be the moderator for this event, people cautioned me. They said, Gwen, why would you do this? Why would you risk your career, your friendships, a possible run at office again in the future? You are better just to remain silent and stay out of it. But you see, I believe that democracy cannot survive in a vacuum. Public discussions are taking place around the globe. The US held public hearings on fairness in sport, and child and youth affirming care, and transition regret. The UK launched a public inquiry into the policies and practices of child and youth care clinic Tavistock. Scotland reversed its decision to allow trans-identifying rapists into a women's prison when reporters broke the news of this contentious decision. And then, Nicola Sturgeon, Scotland's first minister, had to publicly address her constituents. Finland, Sweden, France, Norway, and even Holland, where the Dutch protocol for early gender care was pioneered, have publicly expressed concerns that the data they rely on is outdated, given the increase in youth seeking gender care and the overrepresentation of young girls wanting to transition. I am here today because I believe that open dialogue is an important and an essential piece of problem solving and the creation of sound public policy. So let's get started on the rules and the format of this event. I'm going to give an opportunity for our panelists to share their experiences. It's going to be a narrative form. And then I would like to open it up to questions from the audience. And here's where it can get tricky for a moderator. We have the advantage of these women here tonight. So I want to focus on people who have specific questions to any one of the panelists, or maybe even myself, that we give priority to questions. If at the end of this venue there's some time and somebody wants to make a supportive statement or share something, we will open up the floor at that time. Does everybody understand? I was also asked by security and by the board of directors from the hall to remind you that any kind of abusive behavior will not be tolerated, so it'll be instantly shut down. This is a respectful event, and we know that for some people being here is actually a fearful situation. So let's not add to that. Let's have a wonderful forum tonight. Okay, so let's get started here with our rabble-rousers up there. So it was just a few years ago, on the heels of the Me Too movement, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is a really good time to be a woman. We pretty much don't even do feminism anymore. We have so many rights and people respect us, and we can speak out about sexual violence, and we can speak out about harassment, and wow, things are really great. And then I don't know if you remember, but shortly thereafter, I don't know, it was a bit of a blur, but a person by the name of Jessica Janayh kind of bounced onto the stage, Jessica Jonathan. And it all took place on Twitter, and there was all these rumblings about wanting to have certain treatments, certain waxing. So it became the wax my balls situation. Does anybody remember that? Ah, yes, I see we all do remember that. So do we want to be reminded? Well, we will, just for a brief period here. And I think that's when I first came to realize, or came into this name kind of popped up, and the name is Meghan Murphy. And while we were all watching and seeing this kind of play out on Twitter and thinking, what the heck? Meghan was actually on there taking on this character. And then it came to light that this person was walking into women's bathrooms and snapping photos with very young women in the background and bragging about being able to be in the washroom. And then there were Twitter messages that came out that were with underage girls. I mean, clearly this person was a predator. So a big dialogue, let's call it dialogue, broke out on Twitter. And who do you think got kicked off Twitter?
Meghan Murphy.
Meghan did. Meghan got kicked off Twitter, not because Meghan's a predator, not because Meghan was making inappropriate comments about young women, not because of that, because Meghan called Jonathan, who was using the name Jonathan on many social media platforms at the time, but also going by Jessica, but Meghan called Jonathan, Jessica, him. Oh. Now, some of you don't know Meghan Murphy, so I'd like to introduce you to Meghan Murphy. I would like to I lovingly refer to her as Canada's first cancelled woman. Meghan is a Canadian writer, a journalist, the founder of Feminist Current, a feminist website and a podcast. She has a BA in Women's Studies, a master's degree in Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies from Simon Fraser University. And she testified in opposition to Bill 16 before the Canadian Senate and was invited to speak before the Scottish Parliament. And unfortunately, at public forums, Meghan faces threats of violence, rape, and murder. And yet, she doesn't back down. So tonight, Meghan is going to kick off the first Vancouver Island Women's Panel. This is the first start on gender ideology. So let's give her yet another warm Islander welcome. That's an Islander welcome. It starts even before you ask. Another warm welcome, Meghan Murphy.
Weird and stupid claim to fame to be banned from Twitter for 4 years for calling a man he. But clearly we're living in a weird and strange world that I haven't myself quite been able to get my head around. I'm so happy and relieved and inspired that we're finally having this conversation on Vancouver Island. I'm pretty positive this is the first time we've done this. The past 2 weeks have been really a little stressful, but also really inspiring and galvanizing. I was so excited and frankly shocked to see how many Canadians came together for the Million March for Children. I'm not trying to be rude to Canadians. We all hate being rude, as you know. But I didn't expect it. It had been so long that I've been trying to fight this fight and to tell people what's going on, to get the word out there, to get people to understand the harms of gender identity ideology, how it was impacting women and girls, kids in general, families. And it was hard to not lose hope, honestly. So I'm so grateful and appreciative that people have started speaking out, and I'm so grateful and appreciative that you all have come out today, because I know that it's not easy, and I know that it's scary, and it's a brave thing that you're all doing. So I have to say, this event would never, ever, ever have happened if we didn't have this amazing security team who have been working so hard to keep this space safe for us. We're all open to dissent here, I'm pretty sure, and we want to have this conversation with people who don't agree with us. Unfortunately, they don't want to have the conversation with us. We'll keep trying. Every event I've ever done, ever since I think I started doing these back in 2019, I've been writing about it for much longer, but we managed to host the first ever event in Vancouver, I think at the very beginning of 2019. And every event we do, there's threats, really scary threats, really serious threats of violence, murder, rape, bomb threats. We lose our venues constantly. I've come to expect to lose our venue. We lost our first venue that was in Nanaimo this time around, and we were very, very lucky to find this great space and to be supported by the people who run it. Thank you so much. They, as Gwen mentioned, were threatened, the building was vandalized, and they held strong. And I think it's so important to come out and to show Canadians that we will stand for free speech, despite what our government says and does, despite these threats from activists, despite the ostracization and vilification from friends, from coworkers, from our unions, from our institutions, from our media. I don't really know why I face protesters every time I speak. I don't know why I need private security. I don't know why I need to beg for police protection to protect not just us, not just the attendees, but the venues and the venue staff. Just so that we can sit down and peacefully say that women are adult human females.
That's it.
To say that no child is born in the wrong body. That women and girls deserve safe spaces and should not be forced to share change rooms, bathrooms, shelters with men in order to be inclusive. To say that it is not possible to change sex. I don't know why we're treated as villains for attempting to protect minors from dangerous and unnecessary medical interventions that render them sterile. I don't know. I do know that those who tell the truth throughout history have often been subject to persecution and worse. I know that political persecution and this mob mentality that so many of us have faced over the past few years that supports this persecution is generally not rational, but I do know that if we don't stand up, not only will we lose, but everyone will lose.
Right.
It doesn't make sense that we have to fight this fight. Never mind to be called hateful for doing it, but I do know that we need to fight. As I said, last week we lost our venue. The people who own the building were terrified of facing business suicide on account of activist harassment, for hosting an all-female panel to discuss our rights as women, for discussing what children are being taught in school, for saying that kids should not be told that they might actually be the opposite sex without their parents' knowledge, for saying girls and women have the right to compete in sport on fair ground, for saying that girls and women have the right to boundaries that protect them from danger, and that it's unacceptable to teach girls that they're mean or bigoted or hateful because they feel uncomfortable or afraid of males in their change rooms or bathrooms, even when those men claim to be women. I've been talking about this for many years now, and as I said, I expect venues to pull out. I come to expect cancellation, to expect protesters, to expect threats, to expect violence, and I hate that this has become the norm. It's unacceptable, and it's unacceptable that our political representatives, our media, our neighbors, our co-workers, our friends, our union reps label us hateful and dangerous while we risk violence and persecution simply for saying that men are not women.
Yeah, exactly.
For fighting to protect the most vulnerable among us, and for speaking the truth. I'm not usually an angry person, but this week I have been so angry. No one in Canada should feel afraid to have this conversation. To stand with the women here today, one of whom escorted a male predator out of the girls' change room at a one of whom who is a single mother who was fired and harassed for speaking out in defense of kids and against their medicalization and sterilization. We are not the bad guys. We're not dangerous, we're not hateful, we are, whether or not we want to be, brave. And I want to tell you all that bravery doesn't come naturally. I think people assume it does, but it doesn't. It's not easy for any of us to be courageous, I don't think, to do things that are scary and put us at risk. I don't believe that we're born this way. Courageous people are made through doing courageous acts. And that's what you all are doing here and standing up and speaking out and showing up. You all are now courageous people. You made that choice and you should be proud. It's very easy to choose the other route. But we know that in the face of bullying, in the face of hate, in the face of lies and name-calling and threats and authoritarianism and of actual bigotry, we need to stand up. When it becomes scary to speak, we need to speak louder. When it becomes dangerous to leave the house, to show our faces, to join together in person, to breathe on one another, to hug, to laugh, to argue even, that's exactly what we need to do. We don't run, we don't hide, we don't sit down and shut up, we don't give up, we don't obey. We live in a democracy, supposedly. That's what they tell us. We have rights, supposedly, and we cannot give up the truth to the cowardly and the cruel. The only way to stop bullies is to refuse to be bullied, to refuse the silence they demand of us, to refuse to hide our faces and our names, to refuse to give into fear. That's what they want, that's how they win. In 2016, I spoke out against the Liberal Party's Bill C-16, which became Canada's gender identity legislation. I was one of only a few who tried to warn of what would come from such legislation. The bill passed with next to no opposition. Every party signed on, even the Conservatives who told me that they understood my concerns and were against this bill. Most Canadians had no idea what was coming down the pike. Even I didn't understand the full repercussions of this bill, though I did predict that it would nullify women's rights, as it has. During my testimony, I argued that gender identity is a regressive, sexist, nonsense ideology that claims the impossible, that individuals can change sex through self-declaration, that it's possible to be born in the wrong body, that if a girl or a woman sees a man in their change room and that man says he's a woman, he has the right to be there, and the danger is in fact the girl or the woman who feels unsafe. This is what our government is protecting, this is what our unions are protecting, this is what our public institutions are protecting, the right of predatorial men to access spaces where girls and women are vulnerable. It is hard enough to protect kids from danger, from predators who might cause them harm. It's hard enough to teach girls to protect their boundaries and not to worry about hurting feelings if they don't feel safe. It's hard to teach them to trust their gut, and in fact, their gut is one of their most powerful tools. That feeling that they might be in danger, that something is amiss, that a man's being weird or inappropriate, this is a gift that we have as females. It protects us. And we're being told that feeling, that message, that instinct is wrong and hateful and must be ignored and silenced and suppressed. This is what transactivism is teaching. This is what gender identity ideology says, that you're wrong, your body is wrong, the way you were born is wrong, nature is wrong, everything that we have ever known as humans and as animals is wrong. Don't trust what you know, don't trust what's in front of you, don't trust what you feel or see, trust the government. Trust that man in the girls' change room. Trust Big Pharma, trust the CDC, trust the corporations, trust the institutions, even if those institutions tell you that 2 + 2 = 5, or that man's penis is female. In Canada, we have always felt safe. Things have felt good here. We had our rights, our clean water, our health care, our national broadcaster, our hockey, our toques. We were cozy and comfortable, and even, I think, a little arrogant in a passive way. A polite arrogance that said, we're better than you, but we don't want to argue about it. We got too comfortable and we were too trusting of our government, our institutions, and our CBC. And those we trusted took advantage. Justin Trudeau transferred violent male inmates into women's prisons. Our provincial governments made bathrooms gender neutral. Public schools started teaching that everyone has a gender identity. We were told to put pronouns in our bios and refer to men as she if they requested it. And Canadians went along, and that was a mistake. But our government and these institutions made a mistake too in thinking we would go along forever and that we could not be pushed too far, that we would never stand up and say no, but even the polite have a breaking point. And people really don't like it when you start messing with their kids. So alongside Bill C-16, which passed in 2017, adding gender identity and expression as a prohibited ground of discrimination under the Canadian Human Rights Act and Criminal Code, SOGI, BC's sexual orientation and gender identity curriculum, was ushered into schools. This is a program said to be about ensuring classrooms are inclusive and that students feel safe, included, and empowered. Nothing about this program is safe, inclusive, or empowering. Programs like SOGI teach kids that if they don't relate to traditional gender stereotypes, they may have in fact been born in the wrong body and they need to alter that body through extreme, experimental, harmful, permanent medical and surgical interventions. They teach students that everyone has a gender identity and that if your parents don't support your identification as the opposite sex, it's okay to keep that identification secret from them while you adopt a new name and identity at school. And while that idea that you're actually the opposite sex, that your body is wrong, and that your parents are bigoted and abusive if they don't go along, is supported by school administrators. Teaching kids that they can change sex is a lie. A boy is not a girl because he likes pink or plays with dolls. A girl is not a boy because she doesn't want to do traditional girl things or because she doesn't feel comfortable with her body. These are normal kid things and normal teenage things. Kids should be allowed to escape restrictive gender roles without being told they might have been born in the wrong body. I mean, I don't know what a kid is supposed to even make of this concept, that you were born a boy, but you like dresses, so you need to be castrated in order to feel like yourself. It's insane and it's sick. When preteens start feeling the normal feelings that one feels when they go through puberty, when they start feeling uncomfortable or insecure about the ways their bodies are changing, they're told they can mitigate those feelings through puberty blockers and hormones. And that these things are not only harmless, but life-saving medical treatments. This, too, is a lie, and it's unforgivable. The answer to feeling uncomfortable with your body or with puberty is not to put minors on hormone blockers or to send them off to a surgeon. This is horrific and barbaric. It's a barbaric thing to do to a minor who doesn't understand the repercussions of these medical interventions, which are irreversible, for the record, no matter what anyone tells you. Again, none of this is inclusive. This entire program has excluded parents not only from the conversation, but from having any say in the implementation of this ideology in their kids' schools. Parents have the right to know if a teacher has begun to tell their kid that they're trans or the opposite sex. They have the right to know and to say their kids are just fine the way they are, that there's nothing that needs to be altered about their outsides to match their insides. Women have the right to define the word woman as adult human female. We have the right to say that only women give birth, that only women are mothers, that female inmates who are among the most marginalized people in this entire country, who have more often than not suffered a lifetime of abuse already, should have the right not to be housed with male inmates who further exploit and abuse and rape them. We have the right to say no to men in our change rooms, our transition houses, our bathrooms, and our sports. We have the right to say there's no such thing as a female penis. We have the right to speak about the policies and laws being adopted across our country as they affect us and our families. These are our rights. This is our reality. This is about our safety and the safety of kids. This is serious. This is not a matter of being polite or not polite. It's a matter of doing what's right and standing up and fighting back. Even when it's scary, even when it's dangerous, even when we're silenced and screamed at and called names and bullied at every turn, even if we might be fired or banned from Twitter or lose friends, it's exactly when it is most scary to stand up that we must. And this is what you all are doing today. I'm so glad to see that Canadians are willing and ready to come together and fight back, no matter the cost. It's the only thing that will save us. We are the people. This is our country. These are our institutions. This is our government. These are our rights. And we will not sit down, shut up, and be labeled dangerous, hateful extremists simply for saying what's true, for standing up for kids, for families, for women, for reality, and for our rights.
Okay. Turn my microphone on. Thank you, Megan. Presenter is a businesswoman, a mom of 3, and she is the founder of an online petition, #MakeMeSafe, to raise awareness about safe spaces for our children. Please, let's warmly welcome Janayh Wright. I can yell.
Oh, maybe.
You know you can. Yeah. Let's hear it. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. It's so nice to see all of your faces today. And thank you, like Megan said, to the security team and the venue for just helping us out to host this event. I'm just a mom of 3. I didn't get canceled off Twitter. I don't have some crazy story. But what I'm here to talk about is children's safety. On February 3rd, I was in the Nanaimo Aquatic Center with my daughter and my niece. I heard online that there was a person in the change
escorting my daughter into there. This was leading up to me going. I usually let her go in the change room by herself. She's 9, she has her locker token, it's her little piece of independence, and then I meet her out in the pool area. That evening, I escorted her into the change room, and a individual wearing a man wearing a wig, 6'2", something between his legs. It was a man. Came in the change room and loitered around the change room. Didn't have any towel or bag or any indication that he was going to use the pool facility. Went down to the showers, was peeking in there, looking around, came back up. My daughter at this point and niece were both in the shower stalls, or not in the shower stalls, pardon me, in the change room stalls. There was a few other women in there that were clearly uncomfortable with this individual. They had a face mask on and a wig, and we didn't have any restrictions for face masks at that time. He then proceeded to go into the stall next to my daughter, and I watched as he tried to peer underneath the stall at her, watched his wig come down, and that's when I looked at another one of the women in there, and I said, "Is that person with you?" And she said no, and she was horrified. And when they came out of the change room, I confronted them. And they told me it was within their right to be in the change room, and that I couldn't kick them out. That didn't fly with me. I didn't care at that moment that I was breaking the law, because a predator is a predator. And I kicked them out of the change room, and they got out. And that's the reason that I'm here today, just because I honestly didn't even know that this was a law in our country. I didn't know that any man can walk into a woman's facility and they can claim to be a woman and they can come in. You know what? If you have the same body parts as me and you've gone through transitioning, come on in my change room. I have no problem with that. I have no problem at all. But if you have something between your legs that you can harm a female with, then no, you're not allowed in my change room. I don't welcome you. I don't want that. There should be safe spaces for kids and for women. We should be able to feel safe. And it's really disheartening that we live in a place now where we can't. I can't let my daughter go into a change room alone. I can't let my daughter go into a local bathroom alone. I can't do any of that. And what about my older kids that are, going into a change room in high school? Any boy can just walk in there after her, lock the whole dang bathroom up, and do something terrible to her, Like, it's just, and nobody will bat an eye at it, because anybody can walk into any of our safe spaces. And it's just, we need to bring awareness to this. There has to be a solution. I don't know what it is. I'm not a politician, and I don't claim to be, but I am going to be a mom that continues to speak out against this, and I am not going to back down, because we have to create change. I've gotten a lot of backlash online with my business in this last little while, and it's really unfortunate that people have such closed minds that they don't realize the big picture, that this is a safety concern for children. That's what this really is. That's what this boils down to. And we have to be able to band together. We have to be able to make a change, and that's what I'm here to do.
So our final panelist is Bryony Dixon. Bryony has a film going on reel in the back there, just so you know. Okay, if you wonder what's happening, she'll go into it a little bit during her discussion. She is a single mom of 2 small boys. She has a drama degree from Queen Mary University in London. And she just happens to also have like a master's degree in film from, Oxford. Nothing too much, you know, it's the University of Oxford. Bryony was the artistic managing producer of the Nanaimo Fringe, and we are really, really happy and excited to have Bryony also on the panel to share her perspective. Please warmly welcome Bryony.
Thank you so much for coming. I just want to reiterate what you said about the courage that it really shows to come out to an event like this when you're hearing all sorts of name calling and things like that. And I hope that attending has really kind of reframed that in your mind, that none of this is about hate. So background on me, my drama degree is really when I first got exposed to gender ideology and queer theory. The philosopher Judith Butler talks about how gender is performative. So I was kind of surrounded by that whole concept at university quite heavily. And I had non-binary trans peers and things like that. I never was fully convinced that it negated biological reality, but I could get on board with the idea that there was a gender that we did perform that was masculine or feminine, but I did think that some behavior and innate things about us are based on sex, and that didn't change. And this was a quietly held opinion, I'd say. As I got older and I realized you had to be more politically correct, especially in arts and culture circles where this is, a lot of people bought into it, hook, line and sinker, I will say. So I moved to Canada, as you've heard, I'm a single mom, no family here. I do think that helps me speak out. I don't have deep roots that really can be that jeopardized. And I'm talking often about issues that are happening in England, as you've heard also today about the Tavistock Pediatric Gender Clinic getting closed down last year. Obviously, J.K. Rowling, when I read her open letter and realized that there wasn't a hateful word in it, and often having conversations with people here that just assume, she must have said something awful, but I'm like, so did you read the letter? No, I haven't read the letter, right? Like, many times. So I was the artistic managing producer of the Nanaimo Fringe Festival. I will just correct you that I wasn't fired, technically. Just like this venue tonight has experienced the harassment that comes with talking on this subject, my wonderful board of directors and colleagues also felt that pressure. So I began talking on my private social media about the convicted double rapist that got housed in a female estate in Scotland that Nicola Sturgeon ended up resigning over. Left-wing Guardian article sharing that. And I was privately messaged by an artist in town, a trans man, wishing me misery for my beliefs and saying that they would make sure I had no influence in the theatre community, which is, I don't know if that actually, they succeeded in that, but they certainly rallied a lot of allies around them, and that sort of thing. But let me tell you a bit about what Fringe stands for and why I wanted to present it in the first place. It's modelled on the Edinburgh Fringe, and the Edinburgh Fringe is one of the biggest ticketed events in the world, and it still bills itself as like the biggest platform for creative freedom, which I love about it. I've been fortunate enough to attend and perform it myself, and so when I was approached about presenting the Nanaimo Fringe, obviously much smaller scale, I was really excited about that open access framework for anyone to attend. True diversity, true inclusivity. It's a lottery draw application process, so there's no curators, there's no cultural gatekeepers. But of course, that means you do have to have someone that's able to tolerate different beliefs in running it. So I had kind of attended the Canadian Association of Fringe Festivals conference last November, where I began kind of being that dissenting voice in the room in these conversations. Especially when we're talking about a diverse festival, who are we alienating, who are we ostracizing, who are we welcoming? And I had very difficult conversations in those 3 days. I would come back crying often, just from the weight of having to tiptoe around it. I think people at the end had kind of all sat together and agreed that there was different perspectives out there. And I felt kind of hopeful leaving. But the mob mentality in the Nanaimo continued, and I had a venue pull out on me, and they had sent emails to the CAF, the Canadian Association of Fringe Festivals, calling me a racist, ableist, transphobe. There were artists that posted on Facebook groups in Victoria and Vancouver calling me a feminist appropriating radical transphobe, or FART for short. And I've obviously heard the TERF one too, and yes, I have got a slideshow at the back, and while I can't go into all the many reasons that I have a problem with this issue, or I want to discuss this issue at the very least, that's all the kind of research I've done. I put QR codes so you can go to articles, reports from prison systems, various things, podcasts, all sorts of information up there, and maybe we could share it with ticket holders as well at the end. But this subject is quite clearly the most taboo subject of our current age, and Fringe has already seen that affected this year in 2023. The Edinburgh Fringe had, they cancelled Graham Linehan, who is a 5-time BAFTA-winning comedy writer. He wrote shows like Father Ted. I don't know if anyone is a fan of Irish sitcoms, but a very talented comedian, and he had his venue cancel on him because of his personal views on Twitter about gender. Even though I don't believe his stand-up show included any of that content, but 2 venues cancelled, and he ended up doing a true Fringe job and bringing his own venue, had a little stage outside the Houses of Parliament in Edinburgh, and performed anyway. Which was inspiring. Also, that same festival, Joanna Cherry, a lesbian, gender-critical lesbian, got her venue cancelled. She actually brought a demand letter and demanded that she should be able to perform, and that they were discriminating against her, and they caved and allowed her to continue. But here in Canada, there was the Edmonton Fringe cancelled a comedian this year because of his jokes on this subject. And also a spoken word poem called Poems on Gender was pulled from New York's Frigid Fit Fringe Festival, which is also part of the Canadian Association of Fringe. And that was because they had a blurb stating there are 2 sexes, male and female, and that was considered, they had to cancel the whole show. And this actually allows the producers of Fringe to say that they aren't interfering with the artistic content. Because it used to be a principle of Fringe that it would be uncensored and the artistic freedom of the participants was unrestrained. Now they've changed that language slightly, and they believe by just cancelling the whole show that they're still maintaining that value. I don't agree. So obviously though, in this job I've worked with many trans artists, volunteers as well, and not had any problem with them. As I said, the person that complained to me initially and rallied everyone against me, I had actually presented in 2020 when many Fringe festivals were deeming artists to be unessential, and I still put on a festival and they did great, and there were no complaints. But this is such a controversial subject that it doesn't really matter how you actually operate and conduct yourself anymore. So I began to wake up with obviously all the things that we've been already hearing about today, and started talking about it more. I did a podcast with my good friend Serena, who's there in the front row, and that was initially praised by CAF. They actually liked the fact that I'd been transparent right off the bat, but evidently that opinion on that changed. Right before I was about to send the festival guide to print, one of the artists said they couldn't be associated with an organisation that had someone who was anti-trans in it. So I was going to have to redesign. This is a very small festival. It's me and 2 other part-time honorarium employees and a load of volunteers and stuff. So I was going to have to redesign a whole festival program, and I just couldn't be bothered with programming. So I said I would step back and hopefully signal that this is what you do in a liberal society. You platform people even that you disagree with, and it's absolutely fine. But I was not allowed to attend the main flagship theatre in Nanaimo without a chaperone. because I'm so dangerous. I had to be accompanied by board members or senior members of staff. I displayed a respect code of conduct and abided by it across all of our venues. I hired an LGBTQ plus liaison in case the artists had anything they wanted to confide and create that safe space for them. But it wasn't enough. I actually inadvertently was sent a town hall Zoom meeting by the other CAF members, and they discussed how they didn't personally receive any emails or stuff like that, but that I'd obviously gone down a really extreme path, and that they must prepare future actions to deal with folks with opinions that are outside their values. So clearly, diversity and multiculturalism are not in their value system. So anyway, knowing that, I decided to resign from this job because this is not fringe, this is not creative freedom. And yeah, that's kind of my story. And I will just say that this is a pattern of intimidation against women. The UN Special Rapporteur against Violence Against Women and Girls did release a statement this year because women are not able to speak on this subject, calling to allow women and girls to speak on sex, gender, and gender identity without intimidation or fear. So I encourage you to look that up. It's on my slideshow. I just think more courage and preserve free speech in the face of this kind of groupthink that we've got going on in all our institutions. Because there are reasonable arguments for talking about safeguarding. Another one of my main concerns is the fact that my best friend is an effeminate gay man. We grew up together, and I worry every day about what would have been the case if he had been a boy growing up now, and whether he would have been convinced to medically alter himself. So really appreciate being up here with these two women, and thank you all for coming.
Well, we did it. It happened. And all of you got to witness 3 dangerous women. So now we'd like to proceed to the question period. And we're really on time. We've got a good hour. And like I said, we will, if you have comments that are supportive afterwards, we will allow that. Raise your hand if you have a question, and I will pop over and take that question. I can't get too close to that. So I will just get you to...
loud.
Can you speak loud? Okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering, how do we get access to this slideshow up here?
Yay, the slideshow! I think we can email it out, right? Yeah, we've got your emails, so we can send it out.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Good question. And
for the people online, can we be sure to maybe jot that down for the people who are watching online for all the live streams, please, how they can get this slideshow as well?
Maybe I could link it. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Thank you.
okay, I'll take a question here.
Yeah, I recently saw a Rebel News clip of a rugby team that had a very large bloke playing on a women's team. And so my question is, why are, because in the video the women came to the defense of this very large man playing on the rugby team. Why are so many women seeming to be the biggest cheerleaders of men colonizing women's spaces?
Who you want to direct that to? Meghan? Any of them. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I think, I do want to start by saying that transgender ideology has come from men and is for men. The idea of transgenderism came from male sexologists and from wealthy trans-identified men, and was sort of funneled into all these institutions that we're seeing today, including academia. And it is really, really frustrating that so many women have supported it. I mean, I've lost countless friends over this issue, and I think most of them have been women who said, like, I can't hang out with you anymore because my friend says you're transphobic or what have you. And it's pathetic and it's cowardly. I think that women are, whether it's socialization or evolution, I think women are more inclined to not want to rock the boat, to get along, right, to be polite, not offend anyone. And this is what I was talking about earlier when I was saying, like, it's so hard just to teach girls that it's okay to be rude. Like, if you feel uncomfortable, if like a man is making you feel uncomfortable on the bus, or now in this case in a change room, which is not something we used to have to deal with, but you know, like, it's hard enough to say, you can just be rude. You can just say no. You can just leave. Like, you don't have to worry about hurting this guy's feelings. And now they're being told the literal opposite. So, I mean, so much of this around everyone going along, men and women, is about fitting in, not wanting to be ostracized, which I get. Being ostracized is a really, really horrible punishment. Like, when we used to live in smaller communities in the jungle or the forest or wherever we used to live thousands of years ago, if you were ostracized from your community, you were dead. Like, you can't actually survive alone, you need people. So this is ingrained in us. It's really hard to stand up on your own. But like I said, we have to do it. So I don't know if that totally answered your question, but I will say that I, like you, have been equally as disappointed, if not more disappointed, by the amount of women that I know in my life, by female politicians, by female reporters, by women who have power and money, so really have nothing to lose, and they still won't say anything, Gloria Steinem.
I do have just something to add to that, which I think you were mentioning. Like, is the class issue, I think, is huge, right? Like, you're in these institutions with a lot of privileged people, women, who I will say are, and this is something Kathleen Stock talks about, that they're around men that are well behaved. And working class women are on the front lines with people that are not well behaved. And these women in these institutions believe that there is a possible utopian existence, right? Where nothing can go wrong and there's no bad people out there. But we know, and that's why you'll see it's these working class communities that are coming forward to talk about it more than anything else.
We have a question over there.
Yeah, so I want to talk about how do we get rid of SOGI, and would laying criminal charges be an option?
I've been told that SOGI is more of a philosophy rather than a specific curriculum. So this is why it seems harder to actually say, I just don't want my kid to do that class, right? Like, it's more actually all-encompassing. So I feel like it's really got to come from pressure from the public.
Yeah, they pretend that it's not mandated, but it really is, and that again comes from Bill C-16 and this idea that inclusivity has to be mandated into all these curriculums, right? So I think that the main way that this is going to change is through parents actually speaking up, so talking to the teachers, talking to the principals, going to the school boards and saying, no, it really is about speaking up. We can't just sit around and be polite and not rock the boat.
How many parents are here with children? Okay. Did you ever receive that threatening letter that told you can't opt out? So did you? Yeah. I would say that we do as legal grounds. I quoted it at the very beginning of our talk. This man here has a question.
Sort of an answer to her question. I watched a really great video a couple weeks ago. A woman in a school board meeting in the States basically threatened to sue everyone in the school board if they tried to teach this crap to her kids.
Because there are legal grounds that you can stand on. Okay, over here.
Hi, I'm just curious, why did you choose to use they, them pronouns for Janayh and, I'm sorry, the lady on the right, I can't remember her name. For the men, or in Janayh's class, for the man who was creeping on your child. Like, you respected him by using they them pronouns. Is there a reason you chose to do that?
No, I definitely didn't use those pronouns. I just said the person, and then I corrected myself because I know what crowd I'm in, and you know what, it is what it is. I was respectful though, because honestly, I'm just a respectful person. I don't hate anybody, but men shouldn't be allowed women to change it.
I just want to interrupt, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I know that it's sort of like people have been trained not to call men he if they identify as women, and it's been called hate speech. And in some places, people have been like criminalized, or they've attempted to criminalize people for calling men he. I mean, I've been punished pretty bad. Yeah, exactly. Or you get kicked off the internet. So I think that it can actually be, unfortunately and strangely, difficult to sort of retrain yourself. I say he to refer to men who identify as women or trans women, and often people who are opposed to gender identity ideology kind of are like irked and like, oh, okay, and then they have to retrain themselves to say he also. I don't know, this brainwashing has been very good. Really good brainwashing.
Hi, this is a question for you, actually. What is the path back for the NDP? Once upon a time, when the earth was still cooling, I was an 18-year-old gay boy from a union family, and there was no question that we were going to elect my car. And we did. But the party today has nothing to do with the values of where I came from, of working people and their concerns. It is the university faculty lounge party now. How do we get back to what people actually care about?
How many people here feel like they don't know what if they have a home and a party in? Well, I wish I had a really simple answer for that question, but I think it starts with those of us who are in the party to actually start standing up and to start actually pushing against it. As I said, politics just can't survive in a vacuum, and as Meghan and all of the women here have talked about, we need to have opinions, different opinions. This is where ideas rub against each other, like iron against iron, and hopefully come up with really great solutions and sound public policy. I think that's a start, and maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I'd like to hope that that is the way it starts. Just have somebody back there, and I'll come back to you. So write to your MLAs, write to anybody in the NDP, let them know that there are people that aren't listening. I'll tell you right now, just actually, I gotta say this. I was an MLA, and I read those emails. They impacted me, okay? Those MLAs, those leaders, they read those emails. They do, they come to you. They sway you, they really do. So make sure you write your MLAs.
They never answer me.
Thanks so much for speaking, ladies. Really appreciate it. Hey, Janayh. Hey, Bryony. Yeah, my name is David. I organized the 1 Million March for Children in Nanaimo, and I was really proud of everybody who showed up for the march. It was incredible. Actually, I was just going to ask a question for you, ladies. I know that we're talking about political parties that represent, parents and concerned citizens regarding SOGI and sexualization of children. How do you guys feel about the fact that, Maxime Bernier and the PPC were there? Maxime was marching in Ottawa with the march, and at our rally, Stephen Welton, the candidate for Nanaimo, Ladysmith, was there speaking out, and myself, I'm very active in the party, was speaking out. How do you feel that there is a party in Canada which part of the political platform is opposition to SOGI and gender ideology? Does that make you feel better that there is a party that represents your position?
I can't vote anyway, but yes.
And I'm not a politician, but yeah, we definitely need more politicians standing up for these things. I was told last year at an interview with my husband for my daughter for her classroom that gender is a feeling. And that's when we pulled her out of sex education classes, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was stoked to hear any politician speaking out against this, and I voted for Karen Litsky in Vancouver, who's awesome, who ran for the People's Party of Canada. I didn't think that they would win anything, but it was either that or not voting, and I stopped voting. I think I didn't vote in the previous 2 federal elections. I'm like a lifelong NDP voter, so I voted for the NDP every single election since I was 18 years old, and every single provincial election, and every single federal election, until I decided that I didn't want to vote against myself. And then I just stopped voting because there was no political party that represented any of my interests. So I was glad when the People's Party of Canada came along, despite what my, feminist leftist friends in Canada continued to say, or ex-friends. I think they probably think I'm like a MAGA person now or something because I voted for the PPC one time, and because I hate the leftist parties. And I mean, I hope that I can vote for the Conservatives this time around. They seem like they're getting close. The federal Conservatives, the BC Conservatives have spoken out. I would love to have a party that I could vote for, but I'm not going to vote for a party that doesn't know what a woman is.
Hi there. I'm a new father of a daughter. I've seen what's coming through the pipeline, and I think I've got about 3 to 5 years to prepare for it to make sure that if I am to fight back, that I'm prepared for it. What do I do? What's your take?
I think you need to just start speaking out. You need to start making a conversation. You need to start talking, getting your viewpoint out there, because I think so many people are just very scared to speak out. I mean, like I said to you guys before, my business name has been slandered absolutely everywhere. I've been labeled a ton of different things, but I'm not going to continue, or I'm not going to stop speaking, because the thing is we need this conversation to happen, and we need to have something safe for children's safeguards and for safety for our kids. So just keep speaking out, keep yourself in the loop of what's happening in the school system, and keep the conversation going.
And I also think that on the parenting level, just, which I think most parents are, right? Like accepting and encouraging of your kid, even if they're breaking those gender roles, which I thought we'd thrown in the past. I thought we'd got past all of that. But if your daughter wants to climb trees and make mud pies, like that doesn't mean she's a boy, right? Like just instill that early on. Like, great.
So I have Brenda on Facebook who has a question. She says, have any of these fine women spoken to police and MLAs, etc., to say girls/women are not safe, period?
I've reached out to my union that doesn't like me right now. I don't know if that counts. But as I say, like I can't go. I brought up more the censorship laws with politicians, to be honest. Because that's the beginning of the end, right? Like, if we can get this information out, I think most people would be fine. But that's why it is considered so dangerous, and it must be shut down, right? So I've been focusing on the censorship one more.
And what about you, Janayh? With the situation that took place at the pool, the story
I
you told
did
us.
talk to the mayor. I did reach out to a couple of political parties, but I didn't actually hear back from any of the MLAs. I did hear back from the mayor, but again, this is such a controversial topic that there was nothing done about it. I mean, the Nanaimo Aquatic Center never even reached out to me after this incident, so.
So I just wanted to take a moment here. One of the things that we as a community have really been advocating for is being able to have these conversations and hear each other. And so I've extended to our community outside who is here in protest, if they had a few advocates who would like to come forward and give voice, that we would respectfully have some safeguards around that, but that we would like to do that. And we do have two who have come forward. They were in the comment section. We have Brooke.
No, my name's Jennifer.
Jenna, okay, so I have you, are you the advocates that came in that wanted to give voice and be present? Okay, so I'm gonna hand this over to the moderator, but this is the olive branch that we have extended so that we can remember that while we're giving voice, that it is up to each and every one of us to create the spaces for this dialogue.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm an organization coordinator for our group outside. And we just wanted to know, because this olive branch has been extended, although I'm not very trusting of it, walking into a room full of people that I have seen online spew hate is not super comfortable to me. But is this something that you guys, maybe not you guys, but maybe somebody from your community would be interested in, having a panel where there's both sides to have a conversation?
Do that since 2016, and no one will join the panel. Like, media has tried to host, conversations with me and trans activists. People have tried to set up debates. People have tried to set up panels that shared both sides of the issues, and the other side has always refused. I really appreciate you coming in and speaking to us a lot, because that's, it's not very common that happens. But yeah, I think that.
For sure. But
Yeah, I mean, I think that if the conversation could happen, that would be great. I know Serena would love that also.
And our community is actually in the early steps of creating this type of space that we can bring all the different voices that want to be a part of this conversation and dedicated to finding solutions as a community moving forward so that each and every one of our rights are represented. And so we are in the early stages of this, and we're opening it, and this absolutely is something that we want. We want these spaces where we can all come and hear each other and dedicate towards finding solutions that represent us all and our needs. And we are in the early phases, and we welcome you to be a part of this. We want your community's voice to be a part of this.
reach out to me, but how would I find your information?
Perhaps I can just give that to you privately.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That's it. Okay.
And you're welcome to stay if you both want to.
I don't think so, given some of the faces, but thank you very much.
Can I ask you to hold this a little bit out?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll let Serena work with both of you. Thank you both for coming in again. You had your hand up for a while. I just want you to know, even though I'm NDP, I'm not just favoring the left side here, okay?
Hello. Yeah. My name's Buffy Sullivan, and I grew up in Squamish, British Columbia, and I now live in Oceanside. I survived 12 years of domestic abuse and fled the province of Alberta with my 2 daughters, my 2 young children. And I came to Oceanside because that's where my parents were, because I felt I needed some support. But what I want to get to is, for me, it's self-ID. Self-ID is, it's insane. It's absolute insanity. Canadians were never consulted whether they wanted to veer away from biological sex. This is major. Yeah. When I found out that self-ID had been adopted in Canada, I have never been so enraged in my life, and you can see that I'm shaking. I don't get up and talk like this. This is like totally me going out on a limb here. I'm a very strong feminist, and all my life I've been reading about male violence against women and girls and children, and the rage that I have inside me, the resentment that I have to live in this world, that my daughters have to live in this world, that our children have to live in a world where anybody can have access to pornography, this extreme, degrading forms of pornography. This has created this. This has created these problems that we have in society where men feel entitled to our bodies every fucking hour of the day. From the time we're born until we're dead. We are not safe. And I will not shut up. I have an amazing father. My father is the most consistent man that I've ever had in my life. And he's the reason that I'm out of a domestic abuse situation. And he's the reason that I have a roof over my head because I can't afford rent. I can hardly afford groceries now. This is terrifying. And I also want to say, like, for me, it's the big picture. This is coming from the top down. When I listened to Jennifer Bielek and her talking about the billionaire transvestite insane people who are at the very helm, guiding us all towards transhumanism, and that there's going to be no need for biological sex. Children are going to be born in, they're going to be raised in, this is the fantasy. This is not my world. This is not the world. I think we're fighting for humanity.
Yeah.
Thank you, Buffy, and I could see that she was trembling when she was speaking. Yeah, in Canada, a woman is killed every 6 days in intimate violence in Canada. So we're really thankful that Buffy, you got out of it. I'm going to take one more question here on the left, and then we have another person from our activist community outside that would like to address us. And I think we're really appreciating the fact that both groups are kind of coming together, so thank you. I'll be right there.
Thank you very much. This is becoming a real live issue in communities across the country. Currently on a small island community where I live, just today, moms in a mom's group were talking about how a number of them were no longer taking their kids to the local government toddler center, right, where you live, learn, grow, because there is a trans male volunteer who had been really inappropriate, and their kids had been responding strangely to this person, and they had complained to the staff, they brought concerns forward, and they were told this person is staying, they're a volunteer, we're an inclusive environment. So there's at least 6 moms who have said, we no longer go and access these resources. And when these is actually happening, is there a resource where people can get, some legal advice or some strategy advice of you bring it forward, everybody ignores you, and so everybody's just shutting up because they're like, well, I guess I'm not going to go and put my kid at risk. And I think people are also concerned that if you speak publicly, then are you going to be, slander and defamation and, stirring the pot? Is there a resource out of these organizations that can help guide people when they are confronting this in their communities?
Okay, is there a resource? Meghan, Janayh, Bryony.
I might suggest FAIR, Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. They're actually American, but they do have Canadian chapters. That's who I reached out to because they have in the arts section, and I describe them as a classically liberal inclined organization, so very diverse and inclusive and all those things, but there are still certain safeguards and whatnot. They also have an education section and a law section and a medicine section. And I've seen in the slideshow, and I think Gays Against Groomers guy shared that, they just came out with how to support gender diverse students in education in Canada, a whole report, which is over there. Yeah, there's a hard copy. So I think that would be a good place to start. Toddler groups, maybe not, but they're obviously addressing in education.
I think Our Duty is a good group that has resources for parents struggling with this issue also. And they were, I think, involved in the 1 Million Person March also. So you might want to check them out as well.
And yeah, it's worth repeating that we do have advocates at the table there that you should connect with. Even if you think that your issue may not be linked, you'd be surprised at the umbrella. I see some nods there with the groups that are at the table. We have another activist coming in that wants to speak to us. Here you go.
Thank you. I have a question. How do you guys react when somebody tells you to smile more? It makes you upset, right?
Not anymore. No, I've moved past those types of things.
Okay, but you've moved past because you had to, because it upset you, and it questioned your ability to have feelings as a woman. That's been a big conversation in this, and the safety of a woman. So I think it's interesting that the first person, when I come in here, touches me, one, without consent, comes to my face and tells me I can remove my mask to show my pretty face. I don't believe that these conversations are being had on a level that you believe that they are. If you want to have a conversation, that's amazing. But the difference between having a conversation and having a panel is very, very big. And if you don't invite us in to have a conversation, the conversation cannot be had. I understand that you think now allowing a conversation is being radical. It's not. You denied our existence. You've denied our conversation.
We haven't denied anyone.
You've denied the existence. First off, you're interrupting me. Yeah, I do that. That's a real.
We did actually have a no mask policy in general for everybody.
Everybody. There was a no mask policy for safety.
We've obviously let that slide.
So only your rules then, is what you're saying.
In this space.
In this space. Okay, so it's an enclosed space. I thought this was an open discussion space.
We're in danger, so we said.
If I may, you guys, for a moment, because I did invite you in, Brooke.
Yes.
And so there's a way that we're doing this respectfully.
Yes.
You're offered to give voice,
yes,
and you're welcome to ask a question,
yes,
but to come back and forth, we have to let people answer, but we also
yes,
need to hear you.
Yes, I need to finish my questions.
And that's just for everybody. This is for everybody.
Ask Meghan a question.
Okay, everybody,
We want conversation.
let's just take it down. We wanted a member, a representative to come and sit through the whole thing because we did lay out rules and it gives context. So coming in, I know that there isn't the context. But if you do have a question, any of them will be happy to field it.
How is denying the safety of trans women safety for all of humanity?
Great question. Thank you.
I mean, I don't think anyone is denying the safety of men. I think that what we're talking about is the safety of women and girls and children in particular. And so there are certain spaces that are single-sex spaces for a reason, because women and girls are vulnerable in those spaces. So change rooms, transition houses, shelters, prisons, bathrooms, and I mean, I'm frustrated that I even have to explain why men aren't allowed in those spaces, but I think that
trans women, not men.
Trans women are men.
What if we just, let's just get to one moment here. How would you feel about trans prisons? So let's say that we have a situation.
System. I'm not going to speak on a system I don't believe in. I don't believe in the prison system.
So what happens to the predators that exist in the world? So if there was a rapist, you wouldn't want him to be in prison?
You're asking me.
I can't hear you.
You're asking me questions, right? We just talked about this, right? I ask a question, you answer it. You ask a question, I answer it. But if we're going to keep interrupting each other, then this isn't the conversation.
You're not being interrupted. Go for it.
You literally just interrupted me.
Well, I really want to hear your idea because we're short.
I have a question. Let's not. Sure, your question, because let's not finish mine. Go for it.
What's a trans woman?
What's a trans woman?
Like what sex? What sex is a trans woman? What's a trans
It's not
woman?
about sex, it's about gender.
Well, we are talking about sex. So biological sex, what's the biological sex of a trans woman?
I'm not speaking to that because I'm not a trans woman. I'm not going to speak for a trans woman. I'm not a trans woman. And I think it's interesting that we're also... Are you going to keep interrupting me or no? Yes or no? Because it's not a conversation if you keep interrupting me. It's not. Okay.
So about trans prisons, would that be acceptable then? Because really, this is a real issue.
Speaking to prison. The prison system is first off an oppressive system and a broken system, and it needs a lot of work.
I would agree with you there.
Yeah, so I can't speak to a system that hasn't sorted it out properly and humanely.
It's an interesting demographic to look at though, in terms of 45% of trans inmates are convicted in Canada anyway, are in prison for a sexual offence. So it's an interesting, I'm not saying it's reflective of all of that community at all, but it's an interesting place where we can actually study these people, right? So I do think there is a strong point, and I brought this up with colleagues and they've said to me, well, women get raped in prison anyway. And I don't think that's an acceptable response.
I'm just going to say one more thing. I think it's very interesting for us to be settlers on Indigenous land and denying Indigenous genders. I don't know if any of you have looked that up, but Indigenous genders are real and they existed far before we got here. So if you want to talk about respect, you're interrupting me again. You're interrupting me again. I hope everyone on the live can see the way the conversation is going. Thank you.
I would like an opportunity. May I answer that, Brooke? I would like an opportunity as somebody who is First Nations to speak from my culture and my spirituality. Now I hear what these ladies are saying, and I want to speak from a cultural perspective if that's okay, and I wish Brooke was here to still hear. But we believe in our culture in two-spirited. We believe in the feminine and the masculine, but in no way do we believe that you're ever born in the wrong body. We believe that our journey is here and we are born the way we are because it equips us for our journey. Now for us, that would be a time of developing who you are, journeying with that and learning the medicine of who you are and learning to wield that. We would never say change who you are. We would never say take puberty blockers. So there are a lot of things that we're speaking about that are actually harming children, and we're using things like our First Nations culture to say that it is okay when actually we're only taking pieces of it and we're taking creative liberties with the rest. And I'm sorry I can't.
Can I direct you also to an amazing Maori women's rights group, Manak Wahinek Carrero, who describe this whole situation where parents are being separated from their children and led down a medical pathway towards sterilization as a second colonization, and that's also in the
I want to be fair, so I'm going back to the right side now, okay, lefties? Who was next? Here?
I just, on what just happened, I think Serena left the room, but I fully support what Serena said about extending the olive branch, reaching out to our communities, ones that are not voicing and saying the same things that we are, because that is the way forward. And it's going to be challenging, it's going to be hard, and every time they are going to say something that triggers us or whatever, it's really truly best if we don't voice that in a loud negative way. It's okay for them to say what they want to say, and then it's okay for us to politely respond back to them. I do, but what I do find about the approach, you were really graceful, and I'm really grateful that you showed up. The tone you brought, the way you spoke, you asked actual questions. Unfortunately, when Brooke came in here, all I got from her, she was very defensive and had a very large attitude. And what it did is it ignited what we've been feeling for a very long time. So even though we have been trying in some ways to reach out, we are only human and we have a lot on the line as far as we're concerned. So thank you so much for being here. And we just... And it saddens me that she left thinking the worst of us. Because, yeah, we got clappy and, boo and whatever, but at the same time, her approach was not very It didn't feel genuine. Let's say that. It didn't feel genuine. So I would love to try that again another time. My question is, Janayh, I woke up in February to some private groups knowing about your circumstance, and there was going to be a protest outside of the Janayh swimming center, and I helped to spread that word around people because I don't live in Janayh, but I'm like, you guys need to go and support this mother. And to me, the very obvious issue is, who the hell cares what the gender is? If anybody is in a stall, woman or man, doesn't matter, and acting predatory, that should be the triumphant no. Yeah, so did like, what did the police say to that? Do like trans rights and the fact that this man said that he was a woman, does that trump like predators being in any space, whether they're woman or female, like or male? Like, I just don't. Did you get any?
I got no response. I honestly, I think unfortunately it is such a controversial topic that and to me it didn't matter, and that wasn't, I was very politically correct on my Facebook page. When I shared the story, I did do an interview with the RCMP. 3 other moms came forward and did interviews because they had also seen this guy in the change room, and they also gave their statements. But the RCMP, and the thing is this is a predator we're talking about. This has nothing to do with transgender. This is a predator that was in there, but because they used that loophole with the self-ID, they were able to gain access to the women's space, and the police, they didn't do anything about it. They said they investigated it, and no, we don't know. And like I said, I didn't have any follow-up from anyone.
Okay, we got another question over here.
So this question kind of just goes back to the discussion we had earlier about our political homelessness. So I guess it's for you, Gwen. I've talked about this a lot with people that I know, and what always comes up is we need a women's party. I feel like our voice needs to be heard. And so my question for you is, how do we do that? Because we keep having these conversations of like, yeah, we need a women's party. Yeah, okay. What do we do?
Well, you start organizing. There is actually a women's party started in the UK, am I right, Bryony?
They're trying to
They're trying, right?
They can't get what is it? Official party status. It's been in 2 months.
It's a bit of work, yeah. It takes some work, but it can start.
I think they're doing it in New Zealand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta let somebody else have a chance before I double back to extras.
Hey, I'm gonna yell for 1 second and also say to you, because I didn't say this before, thank you so much for getting the word out there. It means so much to me, and I really appreciate your support. And I'm sorry I didn't say that before. It's overwhelming up here.
Hi, I don't really have a question, but I was just thinking about your comment earlier, like having a daughter and what do you do about school. I'm the founder of a learning pod in the Nanaimo area. We have 30 kids, K to 7. We have formed a pod. It started really with the mask mandates. We wanted to get away from those. And really now we're all aligned on not wanting this OG curriculum to be talking about. I'm working with the district actually, and we are having conversations, really hard conversations. I had to go into those rooms and say, we don't mask our kids, we don't vaccinate our kids, we don't agree with this OG curriculum. But we are tax-paying citizens, and we have a right to educate our children in the way that we want to educate them, just like anybody does. It's not fair that we have to be subjected to things that we don't agree with, and it's really not fair that we don't have a choice. And for me, when I have this conversation with anybody, it always comes back to choice. Where is our choice? Why can't we opt out? You can go and do your curriculum over there in that room if that is what you choose. Where is our choice? Yes. That is.
Hey, can we get your number? Yeah, can we get your number? Yeah.
I feel like I should kind of be out there. I have a lot.
Yeah.
You don't want to homeschool.
Okay, I'm gonna veer back to the left side again. And there is somebody over here waiting for quite a while.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lori. I am a grandmother of 6, and I do not agree with Soji. I want every parent, every grandparent, every aunt and uncle to know there is a solution. StandForThee.com is the only group that has an NOL ready to be served with an actual follow-through. It's done through small claims court. It's very inexpensive. We do not need lawyers, and like I said, that NOL is ready to go. I do have a lot of the information already gathered to prove discrimination, and I am now working on an NOL that may also include treason, because it is a WEF program that they have introduced into our schools. And same with the mayors and the council. They have an NOL that's ready to go to serve for them for treason as well. So StandForThee.com, they have the NOLs and they're ready to go. I have a lot of the evidence that's ready to go along with those.
Okay. I would like, you want to repeat the website? NOL? Stand for the.com. The letter B. So right now I just want hands up if you have a question for the panelists. You have a question?
It's just fine.
Is it a question?
I took a bit of umbrage when the young girl came in and said that I feel frightened and I feel a lot of anger in the room. And I think that's very unfair. I follow Caitlyn Jenner because I really, really, really like her or him.
Yeah.
He fully admits that he is a male. And he is the person that, the type of person we need to speak on this issue. He states that I like to be classed as a woman. I feel feminine. But I'm a man. I was born with the chromosomes of a man. I won't play golf in a women's tournament because I'll win. It's obvious. He did. Yes. Well, no, he did. A charity match, because he said the women love playing with it, they get a kick out of it. So, my question is, why do these people think that we hate trans people? We don't. At least I don't.
Why do these people think we hate trans people? I think they have an idea that's like been built up, and you know, when I had a gathering downtown Nanaimo after what happened at the Aquatic Center, there were some trans activists that came there, and I actually had the opportunity to speak with them. We had a great conversation. They came in guns blazing, and when I talked to them, I told them my concerns, and I said, hey, if there's people also coming after you, there's safeguards in place, and there's people that will be safe, like keep you safe as well, right? I think that they just have such a skewed idea of who we are and what we stand for, and I think that that's why you see what happened here today, like with everybody coming out here and protesting and freaking out. You know, they don't know what we're all about, and they just go with the mob mentality. And
yeah, and a lot of, I will say it, coddling. That's one of my books I brought up here, The Coddling of the American Mind. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff about conflict and the fact that something as a newcomer to Canada, I've noticed, as well as like women are taught not to be rude. Canadians are also taught, like, every job interview I've had, I've been asked about workplace conflict and parenting here, no conflict, right? And now I do believe we have a generation of people that can't even handle disagreement. So
Disagreeing is not hate.
I just want to say something quick. I I think, I mean, first of all, there's no such thing as a trans person. I don't believe that the concept of transgenderism makes sense. But, I mean, I don't hate anybody I don't know. I think that the reason that these people who identify as transgender think that they're hated is because they're told over and over and over again by the media and the government and by these institutions that claim to want to protect these people and to care about these people that we hate them and we want them dead, which is a big fat lie, which they'd know if they would come to these events and actually engage in conversation with us.
2 points I think I'll make without the advocates from the activists coming in the room. We're not the ones that went to their building and vandalized it.
And blasted porn and horrible music and cowbells and we're rude when we were peaceful in the corner of a park, just voicing our opinions. That's the other thing is that, yeah, we just want a chance to actually be able to speak and they haven't let us do that. And we're running around trying to find a place and then wondering why they haven't invited us or we haven't invited them.
Well, and I do want to make one point about Caitlyn Jenner. Didn't Caitlyn Jenner, in the first year of womanhood, win Woman of the Year? Yeah.
But it's
first year out, huh?
Ideology is manipulating, gaslighting. That's what they do. It's not, they don't believe that for 1 second. It's their rhetoric. It's their cult ideology. They're saying, oh, we're the victim and you people are blaming us and hating us. It's all bullshit.
And I know this is really getting us all worked up, but does anybody have a question? Please, do you have a question? Because I'm going to start getting really...
This was probably for you, Meghan. In your preamble, you talked of gender dysphoria. Now, I'm old enough that I've seen enough things in my life. Everybody's, complains about I'm not tall enough, I don't have the right color of hair. I've got all kinds of body issues. Never, as a young person, did I ever hear of people having gender dysphoria. Sexual orientation challenges, issues around it, body image issues that's driven by media, driven by the advertising industry. But what about gender dysphoria? Why is there a groundswell?
Yeah, I think that's a big question. I mean, I know that when I was a kid, I hated feminine things. Like, I didn't like girl things. I didn't like pink. I thought that being a girl was kind of boring and pathetic. But it never occurred to me that I literally was not a girl and that maybe I was a boy. I guess I identified as a tomboy, and I'm just really grateful that this concept didn't exist when I was a kid. I'm sure many women from our generation, and probably men too, feel the same way. I mean, these concepts, I think, were invented originally by sexologists, again, male sexologists, and then, normalized through all these institutions. In part, I mean, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I bet we have a lot of them here. Men who wanted to identify as women and be accepted as women, most of them have a fetish called autogynephilia. And in order to normalize this, they glommed onto this idea that there was such a thing as a trans kid, that you could be born trans, that some people were born in the wrong body, and that therefore it was necessary for these kids to transition. The only way that they can feel comfortable and not suicidal, which is such a gross, dangerous thing to tell a kid, that if they don't do blank, in this case, medically transition, they'll be suicidal and they'll hate their lives and they'll hate themselves forever. But this was all an invention of these guys who wanted to normalize their fetishes and their lifestyle, and people in power went for it. In large part because of money, because of funding. There's a lot of profit to be made within transgenderism. So, yeah, I guess, I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, let's face it too, not that I want to age everybody, but when we were young, we didn't have social media, right? That has really changed things. It's been very powerful, it's been pretty amazing, and it can also be a bit of a destructive, depressing marketing tool. All right, somebody have an actual question again? Good question. I'll come back to you.
I'm really bad at names. This is a question about the Nanaimo School Board, so maybe middle or right hand, I'm sorry. I work at a school that has a huge trans or flags all over the place. My kid's school, nothing, and nothing. There's posters inside there like, how do you know the difference? I was like, boys and girls, and like it was very like from the 80s. And everyone was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Like, it's just a dumb school poster, but I was like, that's not what we're talking about. Do the principals hold a lot of the strings, do you think, about what happens? Like what, because there's a big difference in our district. Do you know anything about that?
I guess it's who wants the money, right? Like you get money from, I don't know about for education, but in the arts, I would write a grant and it would be to support certain initiatives that the government wants to push. And I believe that there's a lot of money coming down for inclusivity.
Outside, there's one.
And then I think if the teachers are wanting it, they'll probably lobby their principal to do it. It's a lot of...
There's a lot of, this is all anecdotal, right? But there does seem to be regional areas, you know, that are a little more outspoken, that maybe are, the teaching maybe is a little bit stronger, in other areas not so much. So there's definitely regional areas. You'll notice differences. I think some people have maybe heard of this, you know, but that's all anecdotal at the moment. I don't know if you know of any studies that have been done regionally in BC in terms of, okay. But that's a good question, because not all schools are the same. They're different. They're different approaches. And of course, some people have really, I think, Janayh, you have good relationships with your teachers at the school, and some teachers, quite frankly, are leaving the profession, right? I think it comes as no surprise that they're having a difficult time recruiting teachers right now. I wonder why.
I just wanted to say one more thing. I think we can all agree here that we really want to be able to protect the kids and protect the safety of the women. And I can't help but feel like my little inner child inside is asking the question of, how are we supposed to do that when everyone just wants to fight, wants to get defensive? I think you really need to look at it from a different perspective, that there's never going to be a solution if we don't actually focus on the problem. We need to protect the kids and the women and the safety and make everyone feel safe. And I know that being a child that went through the story that I shared, when I was younger, people were more focused on fighting about it, if there was something going on, than actually protecting me. So I just wanted to remind everyone to keep the focus that we're trying to protect the safety of kids and women, and even men. We all go through stuff with predators, and if we're gonna fight about it and want to get in disagreements about things and throw opinions, we're losing the focus.
I think we should give ourselves a pat on the back at the same time too, because compared to what happened in Victoria, Serena, what just happened here may have seemed a little bit uncomfortable, but that was pretty amazing. I did not think any of them were going to come in and chat with us. And I, like Serena and I were saying, context is missed because, unfortunately, I wish some of the applicants had actually come and sit through the whole presentation, because context matters. Yes. Does somebody have a question?
Is there a donation box? Because when I went to make my ticket for $25, it rejected. And I had to go to the $15 one. And I thought, but I was wanting to pay $25.
These women will take your money. Don't worry. That we can facilitate very easily. That's a problem that's solved like right away. I'm coming back to the left.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you, ladies, for coming in and educating us on this whole entire everything. My question is more about the balance of masculinity and femininity. And in my observation of having transgender friends, having gay friends, having lesbian friends, there's always been an imbalance, and I've noticed my own children growing up. They were tomboys, they're both girls. They became feminine at certain points in their growth. They became very masculine at certain points in their growth. They're both grown, beautiful, well-rounded females. My question is there a solution based around divine femininity and divine masculinity, creating a balance within community?
Who do you want to direct your question to? How about the one from Oxford? Who has a drama degree? This seems like right up your alley, Bryony.
I'm not as woo as I'd like to be, but I'm coming into all of this, and I totally agree. Like this yin and yang, right? Like I'm being disillusioned by feminism big time, thinking that we were sold a lie, that we could have it all, and now I'm seeing it as a kind of way to tax the other half of the population and to take the kids out of the home. So I'm like, oh, okay. And I love masculinity, I love men, right? And I think we complement each other in this way, and we should work towards that instead of hating one another.
Okay, we are really getting to the end. I'm going to take one more question. And who is it that has a question? Oh, okay. You know what? You're on the aisle, so you're easy for me to get to.
I'm looking for a better understanding of what the issue is, because it comes across as a multi-pronged argument. Are we talking about children who are transgender? Are we talking about drag queens? Are we talking about adult men who decide that they're women much later in life? It seems that there's multiple arguments happening at the same time, and I wonder if that's deliberate to destabilize everybody at some point, because somebody's got an issue with something here.
Meghan?
I think that we tend to really complicate things for ourselves and for our arguments when we go along with the language and the ideology itself. It is very simple. You can't change sex. I'm happy for people to live their lives in ways that make them feel good and comfortable, to wear the clothes they want to wear. I don't care if a man wants to wear makeup or grow his hair long. I don't care if he chooses to get cosmetic surgery. It doesn't make him literally female. I think that we need to reject the language of trans children, of trans kids, of trans women, of trans men. It's not a real thing.
Wow. All right, we're getting to the end. I hope everybody enjoyed their time. Yes. And I have a little something I just want to personally address with our presenters. How many people here with the union have union membership? That's guy, he's got his hand up back there. So some of you will be aware of this poem called Bread and Roses. It's a little oldie and a goodie. And when I think about the women coming here tonight and some of the things that they faced in speaking out, I think about some of the lines from this poem. As we go marching, marching, we bring the greater days. The rising of the women means the rising of the race. No more the drudge and idler, 10 that toil where one repose, but a sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses. This poem was written in the 1900s and was used by women who wanted to fight for equal wages, bread being equal wages. Today, this poem, I think, is about dignity for women once again. So I want to present each of you with a rose in thanks of taking this today on behalf of us and having these conversations. Yellow one there for you, Bryony. And for you. And for you, Meghan. So women, as you march forward, women on the stage, women here, as we march together and we work on this issue, we do it for bread and roses, for dignity, for equality, because it's the right thing to do. Thank you so much for joining us today.